on the night team. A neighborhood that's living on edge.
A little more at ease now. You know, the person was caught.
Now has some sense of closure following the arrest of a man who fatally stabbed a 79-year-old woman in her own home in Fern Creek. How the neighborhood is now hoping to move forward. Plus, a car drove right into the Arby's on 3rd Street. You can see windows and walls destroyed. What we know about the crash. And later, everyone was Irish for a day.
You've got this, March Madness, Thunder, and Derby. So it's kind of the chapter 1 of a fun spring, if you will.
We're hearing from longtime Louisville St. Patrick's Day parade goers on what keeps them coming back for more. The WHAS11 night team starts right now. After a month of questions, one Fern Creek community is breathing a sigh of relief tonight. Louisville Metro Police have arrested a man in connection with the February stabbing of a 79-year-old woman who was found dead in her own home. Thanks for joining us here on the night team. I'm Alex Dieterer. As Connor Steffen shows us, the news comes as some sense of closure for some living in an area on heightened alert ever since.
Driving into the complex at Chenoweth Vista Way.
Everybody's been caged up with this cold.
You're met with security measures mounted on top of garages and built into doorbells.
Yeah, there has been extra doorbell cameras now, which we're thinking about getting one ourselves.
For some, the worries of what happened more than a month ago linger, when police discovered 79-year-old resident Betty Collins dead in her home back in early February.
Probably be a little more cautious about your surroundings and things like that.
As they move forward cautiously, they're met with some sense of closure.
I think about the situation and was just curious if the person was ever found.
LMPD says officers arrested this man, 29-year-old Mark Rudolph, on March 4th in connection with Collins' death. He faces charges of murder, first-degree robbery, first-degree burglary, and tampering with physical evidence.
Never seen that person before, ever, in this area.
Police say investigators tied him to Collins' death after he was captured on video in possession of her car the night she died. According to court documents, he then abandoned her car before taking another victim's car and driving away from the scene. Later, during a search of Collins' abandoned car, police recovered 2 bloody kitchen knives.
Hopefully that's going to be the last time that we have any kind of issues like that.
Residents are still mourning the death of a neighbor, described by friends as one of those old-fashioned ladies that was never afraid of anything.
A sign of relief, easement, you know. They won't be looking over your shoulder out the window constantly, seeing what's going on.
While closure may soothe some fears, neighbors continue to grapple with the realities of a tragic loss. In Fern Creek, Connor Steffen, the WHAS11 night team, on your side.
Following the deadly attack, video camera doorbells are being installed at homes in Fern Creek where the residents need some extra help. District 20 Metro Councilman Stuart Benson said his team, and the Louisville Metro Police Department want to help the most vulnerable have an extra sense of security. Police are also investigating after a teen was found dead along Dixie Highway overnight. Police say they responded to reports of a shooting at an apartment complex on Bonneville Boulevard just before 1 this morning. When officers arrived, they were told the victim was found next door at the business complex on Dixie Highway. The victim was identified by the coroner's office as 17-year-old Damoni Smith. Smith was found with a gunshot wound and pronounced dead at the scene. Anyone with information is encouraged to call the anonymous tip line at 574-LMPD. New tonight, a car crashed through the Arby's on South 3rd Street. Video right here shows the car crashed into the restaurant. Police say they responded to the crash this afternoon. Officers say an elderly couple ran into the restaurant. Thankfully, no one was injured in the incident, and police are currently investigating. We're learning more information about why the Sherman Minton was suddenly and immediately closed yesterday afternoon. In a release, the Sherman Minton renewal team said lateral floor beams on the upper deck were out of alignment. Officials made the discovery Wednesday night when they attempted to remove temporary bracing and begin concrete pours. Now, officials are working around the clock to inspect and determine necessary repairs. Right now, there is no timeline for when the bridge could reopen, which is leaving businesses in New Albany hurting once again.
I've already had several that's canceled. I've had a party of 20 that canceled. You know, they were coming from Louisville. So yes, a lot of people don't like paying that toll bridge. And of course, unfortunately, with the accident on 2nd Street, they've only got one lane open. So that's definitely hurt. It's hurts me, and it's going to hurt Jeffersonville and Clarksville too.
The renewal team says once an inspection is complete, they'll release a finalized timeline for the repair schedule. But until then, drivers are encouraged to take alternate routes. That includes 265 and 65. WHAS11 drone captured the latest cleanup efforts in Nulu. This comes weeks after a massive fire left dozens of people without a home. As you can see right here, the damaged apartment building has been completely removed, and all that remains is dirt and the memories. Just this week, we've learned from residents that looters are taking advantage of the situation. Residents weren't allowed to go back into the building after firefighters put the fire out. The fire marshal ordered the demolition of the building. And if you look closely at this video, you can see a man rummaging through the debris in the darkness. Since that video was recorded, some of those whose belongings were taken have been able to track their items all across the city.
There was no security at the time. It's been on and off. My AirPods were actually at the hospital the other day. Somebody's phone was down the street.
We did reach out to Louisville Fire to see if we can get an update on the investigation into the fire. And as of right now, they say the investigation is ongoing and they are still working to determine the cause. The 2024 presidential election is shaping up to be a rematch of the 2020 race between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. Both men on the campaign trail were in Georgia today, a once Republican stronghold that President Biden won by an extremely close margin 4 years ago. Here's ABC's Derek Dennis with the details.
President Joe Biden and Donald Trump both in Georgia Saturday, holding campaign events in the battleground state. President Biden in Atlanta speaking to voters in a state he won in 2020 by less than 12,000 votes.
Our freedoms are literally on the ballot this November. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans are trying to take our freedoms away. We're not going to let them take them away.
Once a Republican stronghold, Georgia is now competitive.
3 years ago, you helped the Democratic ticket and won Georgia presidential election for the first time in 30 years.
Biden on a tour of key battleground states hoping to build momentum following his fiery State of the Union speech.
You can't love your country only when you win.
Around 70 miles away, Donald Trump addressing supporters at a rally in Rome, Georgia. The presidential vote in Georgia so close in 2020, former President Trump was eventually indicted for his push to find 11,780 votes to overturn President Biden's victory there. Trump has denied any wrongdoing, seemingly confident he will win the state this time around.
With your vote, we are going to win the state of Georgia in an epic landslide.
In his first rally since Nikki Haley dropped out of the race, the former president taking aim at Biden.
Joe Biden gave the most divisive, partisan, radical, and extreme speech ever delivered by a president in that chamber, not even close. Rather than trying to bring our country together, he tried to cling to power by tearing our country apart.
Georgia voters will cast their votes in the state's Republican and Democratic primaries this coming Tuesday. Derek Dennis, ABC News, New York.
The Indiana legislative session has officially wrapped up a week ahead of schedule. Despite promises of a lighter session, the legislature had to address a few major concerns, and that includes gaming. The Senate passed a bill that requires the Indiana Gaming Commission to come before the State Budget Committee if it needs more money than was previously allotted to them. Opponents of the measure are concerned this gives too much power to the legislature, especially as former Representative Sean Eberhardt is on his way to prison for federal charges of influencing gaming legislation. However, supporters call the measure a necessary oversight.
If there is an instance where the Gaming Commission utilizes and uses all of their funding in an investigation, and they need more money because it's that serious of an investigation, wouldn't we want to know that beyond an augmentation? Wouldn't we want to have some oversight?
This is bad. We're asking for trouble. And we're undermining the confidence of the public in this body and in the Gaming Commission.
Ultimately, the bill passed and is now heading to the governor's desk for his signature. Several other ideas died on the final day of the legislative session, including language that would eliminate the tampon tax and an idea to allow religious chaplains to provide support to students in public schools.